So we have to talk about it. There is something seriously wrong with Donald Trump. And I want to be clear. I don't know what it is, but I have real questions. I want to know, did he have surgery? Did he have some kind of stroke? We deserve to know this. Okay, let's take a look at why I'm saying this. What you are seeing here, not the background with my, this is from my thumbnail with my MRIs behind it. The face that you see here is not photoshopped. This is just blown up, a photo taken by the press over the weekend of Donald Trump. As you can see, his mouth is slack. His expression is vacant. This is a guy who smiles big at cameras and gives thumbs up. And this is what his face looked like. Now, there is, of course, more than this to look at. I want to step back here and show you, compare and contrast. On the left is a photo. It's a screenshot from the last public appearance Donald Trump had where the press was invited in. This was the cabinet meeting from Tuesday. I showed a clip the other day. It was very sycophantic, where every member of his cabinet took a turn going around the long table and telling them how much they loved him. And he looked happy but uncomfortable, kind of a big smile and a grimace. Now, that was Tuesday. On your right is a photo from this weekend. Again, similar to one I just showed you, just different baseball cap. You will see that if you look, his face, I'm going to even back out a little more. His eyes look vacant. His mouth is barely open. He is expressionless. I'm going to show you another photo. Again, on the left is Donald speaking, that famous anus-looking mouth he makes to somebody. His eyebrows are arched. Yes, he has a little pig eyes. He hasn't been looking well. His hair is coiffed up. We know that he does that work for himself. On the right, you have Donald and yet another long-brimmed hat, his head down, his mouth barely making a kind of expression. And there's more. This was the first proof of life photo that we saw. This photo was shared sometime on Saturday, August 30th, right? It was in the middle of the night, like midnight, 1 a.m. that morning, that people were going crazy on all forms of social media saying no one had seen Donald since the Tuesday cabinet meeting and his press schedule. There was nothing, no press pool for him, and he wasn't going to his New Jersey golf club. So everyone thought that was weird. So later that morning, people were up in the middle of the night on Saturday. Right, it's Friday night going into Saturday. And by the way, the other thing that was freaking people out is what I showed you in Fridays here on Taub Live. So let me just back this up for a second. Last time he's seen was at that cabinet meeting. So let's go back. Here we go. Donald Trump is seen at his cabinet meeting on the left. You see that, right? And that's Tuesday. Not seen from, supposedly signing executive orders on Wednesday. On his schedule, he has some kind of lunch with J.D. Vance on the schedule on Thursday. On Thursday, also, J.D. Vance gives that interview that I showed you a clip from with USA Today reporter Francesca, and I'm forgetting her last name. And he gives that interview and says, sometimes, terrible things can happen. Sometimes this was Francesca Chambers. And he says, look, I've got really good on the job training, right? So this is Thursday. And twice he said, that horrible things happen or terrible things happen or tragedies happen. This is what he had to say. And that seemed that he said he was ready in case a tragedy happened was really kind of weird. So again, Donald Trump seen on Tuesday, not seen in public. Thursday, Vance gives a public comment to USA Today twice in the interview saying tragedies happen and God forbid should there be a tragedy, he's ready to step in, but Donald's in great health. That happens Thursday. On Friday, his schedule's clear for the holiday weekend and suddenly he cancels his trip to his New Jersey golf course. So of course, Friday into Saturday morning, people are freaking out. And so the proof of life that the White House offered, this is what it was. The press was not invited to do this, but you can see they had Donald walk out of the White House headed for not his New Jersey golf course, but his golf course in Virginia or a golf course in Virginia. I don't keep track of all of his fucking golf courses. I'm sorry. And you see here is the expression on his face, the one I did a close-up of, where his jaw is slack, his mouth is barely open. His left hand in this photo, it looks to be holding on to a hanger. But we actually see later photos of him with that left hand kind of just kind of hanging down. Okay, so this is what was going on. Now, what do we also see? This is like the next day. There is Donald again, and you can see him sort of staring vacantly, not looking over to the cameras, at this point only showing the left side of his face, his mouth in that same barely open, motionless expression. And of course, I also showed you this photo already, looking down again, not at the cameras. And then here is one of him in a car pulling away, and you can see he appears to be on his phone, holding it there in the, and this appears to be the right side of his face. Again, not smiling, not looking out. Now, I did see a photo of him, and I couldn't find it this morning, in the limo, in the Beast, or whatever they call his limo there. I think the Beast might only be a certain one of them, but he's in his security car in the back seat, and he looks out and he's trying, it looks like, to do a thumbs up and isn't fully accomplishing it. Okay, so why am I talking about this? Well, why I'm talking about this, and I want to show you this, is there is a huge difference between how this man looks on Tuesday, which is on the left, and how this man looked on Saturday. And we deserve to know what the hell is going on. We do. On top of this, Donald also shared, the White House shared some photos of him supposedly in a golf cart playing golf, but people pointed out it was not from this weekend. They were showing fake photos of him in this golf course, which seemed also a weird cover-up. Now, I've got a little more for you. This isn't the first time we've had questions about Donald Trump and whether he had some sort of stroke or some issue. Now, for years, even from back into his first presidency, people noticed that he was dragging his right leg. And by the way, let me just back up. I don't want you to think I'm being ableist. People have all kinds of health issues. They should be upfront about them. To the extent that there is something going on with him mentally, that is the thing that's giving him the very weird, recent seeming dementia and chaotic thinking, we deserve to know, because this is a man who has threatened to invade U.S. cities, now Venezuela, has his finger on the button for nuclear war. This is a very special job, and being mentally incapacitated is, I believe, disqualifying. The Constitution isn't clear on that, but we'll get to that. So let me show you this. This was Donald Trump in March. And you can see him getting out of a golf cart, and he is kind of bringing that leg around, that right leg. Now, that could be just a knee brace on his knee. We also saw him having difficulty when he was walking down that red carpet they rolled out for Vladimir Putin. You saw that he was having trouble walking in straight lines. People ask, could this be signs of a stroke? Now, I've got more for you, but I just want to say this again. I don't believe in diagnosing someone, one, if you're not a doctor, or two, even if you are a doctor, if you haven't fully examined them. Diagnosing. That's just me. I know there's a duty to warn group who's comfortable doing that. However, just let me say this. Asking the question, hey, is this physical activity? Is this an expressionless face? Is this dragging of the leg? Is this fugue state that he went into a year ago at a campaign rally? We'll get to that. Are these signs of a problem? This is what you're supposed to do when you go to a doctor. No one says you should diagnose yourself. Everybody thinks you should pay attention to your own body. And if there's something up, you have the best information as a lead to say, hey, is this something? For example, you're supposed to, in between mammograms, check to see if you feel any lumps in your breasts. Are you supposed to, if you feel a lump, decide that you have cancer and take a pocket knife out and cut out the tumor? No fucking way. But I'll tell you, fuck you if you think you should tell a friend, hey, like if I told you, I'm feeling something there, you shouldn't say, Jennifer, you're not a doctor, just go to work and teach law. No, you'd say, go get it checked out by a doctor. Moreover, if I were showing signs of some kind of stroke or some kind of verbal instability, see, now I'm choosing my words, having difficulty choosing words, see, point this out. But if you noticed a behavioral change in yourself or a close family member, difficulty finding language that was usually easily available to you, besides normal signs of aging. If you were dragging your leg and you had not dragged your leg before, things like this would be good reasons to check with a doctor. Or even sometimes people check with Dr. Google, freak themselves out, but sometimes they are right. And I want to show you what I'm talking about. Last October, about 11 months ago, you might remember that Donald Trump was at some kind of rally, and suddenly, and I think it was really warm in the room. It was one of these places where people were fainting a lot because they hadn't paid for air conditioning. It was some sort of large garage kind of thing. And Kristi Noem was there emceeing. Yeah, Kristi Noem, you know her. And there was this weird moment where he just froze and could only kind of sway and almost couldn't speak. These are signs of possibly what they call a TIA, a transient ischemic stroke. I'm probably saying the word wrong. And the thing is, if you have little, and he claimed there are many times when Donald Trump lashed out at people saying, I've never had mini strokes. And the White House says he's never had mini strokes. Okay, whatever. He may say that. But I want to show you, remind you, last October of what happened.
Or do you want to play your song and then greet a few people, or do you want to? Well, you had said you wanted to close with a specific song.
I'm turning the sound off so I don't get a copyright hit. But I want you to see he just stood there swaying for quite a while. If I recall correctly, it was over 15 minutes. Notice that he's holding his mic in his right hand. It's gripping that. He's just standing there and he's swaying. And that was a really kind of weird. At one point, he walked over and held the chair and looked around, smiling and not speaking. That seemed to be unusual. You might remember that. So when you've had small strokes or any stroke, your brain is more likely to have them. Also, I want to remind you, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm just telling you, if this were my body or my family member, I would make note of this. The other day, a few weeks ago, when the White House announced that he had chronic venous insufficiency, and that it was no big deal, that it was common, and that is why he had the blood pooling in his ankles. Well, it turns out that there can be a risk of throwing a blood clot to the brain from these kinds of things, like chronic venous insufficiency. As far as I've read, I'm not a doctor. I'd go to my doctor and ask. And what an ischemic stroke is, either the transient type, which is temporary, and we'll talk about that, or like a full-blown stroke, is when one of those blood clots goes up into one of these arteries and cuts off oxygen to a part of the brain. So there's a real question. And by the way, transient means it resolves itself. And if it, again, not a doctor, what Google told me. And if it's not transient, meaning sort of temporary, you actually need to have some kind of surgery. So that could be what happened. I also think there's a possibility that Donald had some issue and had to have surgery. Maybe a growth in his brain, something involving something that would affect his brain, right? Some kind of surgery. And the reason why I think it could have been planned surgery is as follows. At that cabinet meeting, it kind of felt like a living wake. I mean, if you look at the way they were talking about Donald, person by person, and the looks on their faces, it really did seem like, and I want to share this with you. They were trying to say to him, we really love you. Like, here, I'm going to show this to you. I've got a highlight for this, but it really looked like they're kind of saying, you're a great guy. So I want to show you this in a second. So one theory is he knew he had to have some kind of procedure that might have complications. He had it. Maybe he was on a ventilator. Maybe it took a little longer and it was touch and go. And that is why J.D. Vance said what he said, because there was a Schrodinger's president moment where no one was really sure how he would get through this. And maybe he got through it, but it's kind of shaky in where we are. So I want to share scenes from that cabinet meeting with you right now. And I'm not giving you the whole 3-hour thing because we don't actually have 3 hours here. Okay. And I'm going to share with you specifically Jen Psaki talking about the cabinet meeting. So you can watch this. And here, oops.
I was going to try to describe for you just how sycophantic this cabinet meeting today was. How much it would make North Korean leader like Kim Jong-un or Russian President Putin blush. But my attempt to summarize this meeting, just no matter how hard I tried, just could simply not do it justice. And this is one of those things you really have to see for yourself.
As we approach Labor Day weekend here, this is just such a great opportunity really to recognize your leadership as a true champion for working people.
Everyone knows there's no stronger advocate for hardworking American families than you, sir.
Mr. President, it's pretty great to celebrate Labor Day with a builder who loves labor.
Mr. President, I invite you to see your big, beautiful face on a banner in front of the Department of Labor, because you are really the transformational president of the American worker.
The average family and individual that lives in this country is safer than they've been in years because of what you've done.
Our country has never been so secure thanks to you.
You have breathed life back into the profession of law enforcement.
Your tireless campaign and your relentless messaging made people realize the American dream isn't dead. It's just been smothered, and we're unsmothering it and setting it loose.
You have brought us back from the edge. You have the overwhelming mandate from the American people. You're restoring confidence in government.
All the industries that have been killed in this country are coming back to life because of you. You are going to save the whales on the East Coast.
Thank you for saving college football, by the way. We're all very grateful.
This is the greatest cabinet working for the greatest president.
What we are accomplishing now, again, wouldn't be possible if not for your leadership.
God bless your assembly of this team around this table. We're bringing the American dream back.
I do believe we're in a revolution. 1776 was the first one. 1863 or so with Abraham Lincoln was the second. this is the third, with Donald Trump leading the way.
There's only one thing I wish for, that noble committee finally gets its act together and realizes that you are the single finest candidate since the Nobel Peace, this Nobel Award was ever talked about, to receive that award.
Okay, guys. So, you know, that plays into the theory that his health issues weren't good. Could be a coincidence. But again, did he have a stroke? Did he have some procedure that maybe he's still recovering from and didn't go so well? Also remember that Donald was talking about dying recently and how maybe he wouldn't make it into heaven. So all this stuff is going on. So I have real questions. And here's the deal, though. I'm not sure if we're going to fully get real answers. Now, you may have heard that the White House announced that today at 2 p.m., Donald Trump, or they said the president, that's how they refer to him in press announcements, that the president will be making an announcement. Now, I know there are some feisty folks who wonder, did they say the president because it's going to be J.D. Vance making the announcements? No, my friends, that's not what's going to happen. If it happens, hallelujah or not, that's not what's going to happen. I think he's going to have a what he considers a normal press conference announcement. Whether it's pre-recorded or not will be interesting. But I think he hates seeming weak. I think he's going to show up and do some real bullshit. I think he's going to announce that they're going to send troops into Chicago. I think with all the warships he's landing out in Venezuela, he might even declare war on Venezuela. I have no fucking idea what the man is going to do. But if he addresses his health, it will be to attack those of us who dare to fucking question our dear leader. I also doubt that he is going to draw attention to the fact that tomorrow on Wednesday is a major press conference with the victims of Jeff Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, right? There's a big press conference that's been planned, and that's happening. I think it's in the morning tomorrow. I don't know the exact time. We will be covering it tomorrow. I'm assuming it's during the daytime, and I will live stream it whenever it happens. It may be coinciding with our show. If it's after, that will be a separate live stream. Okay, guys, we will be there together. But today at 2 p.m., don't get your hopes up that we're going to know a lot more about Donald Trump's health condition. And also, I just want to be clear. It's not easy to get a president to involuntarily step down or step aside, even under the 25th Amendment. And here's how I know that Donald Trump will never step aside while he can speak. Because let's assume he had some kind of surgery or some kind of incident. He didn't hand over the reins to J.D. Vance, right? Secondly, I have read the 25th Amendment and the involuntary clause where the cabinet temporarily removes the president and then he can later contest. And there's this whole process of overriding that. It has never been invoked. I think it would be worthwhile for us to look at the 25th Amendment to see what's going on in it. So I'm going to pull up the National Constitution Center's website. Because when I talk about did Donald Trump have a stroke, it's because I fucking want to know who's covering up something and if he has capacity. But I am not under the illusion that this man thinks that would make him disqualified in any way. I want to remind you, that having a stroke and recovering from it doesn't disqualify you from serving in office. That said, covering it up and not being honest, I believe does. But again, that's my normative opinion. It's not a legal opinion. Let's look at the legal issues here and why it would be so difficult to make fetch happen, so to speak. Let us go. Okay. So this is section 1 of the 25th Amendment. In the case of the removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. Okay, so that is a line of succession right there in the Constitution. There are 3 different paths. They describe removal, death, or resignation. Assuming he's not dead, J.D. Vance isn't going to become president. Now, I don't want to be weird on you, but there are folks who think those aren't photos of Donald Trump. I think they are, but, you know, fine. So if he's not dead and he's not resigning, what does removal look like? Okay. So let me skip to that part. Section 4 of the 25th Amendment. We're going to get into the weeds. I want you to hear this and not hear what people say about it. Section 4. Whenever the vice president, so that would be J.D. Vance, in a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives a written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting president. Okay, so what this is saying is you would need J.D. Vance and a majority of the cabinet or whatever Congress has previously or in law specifies as a majority. Let's just keep it simple and say, I mean, I just need you to focus on this. You would need J.D. Vance and 50%, half of those people who kissed his ass on Tuesday to do this. That seems difficult. Okay? And then, even after that, if the former president, meaning Donald Trump at that point, right, because if he's incapacitated involuntarily by J.D. Vance and half the cabinet, he would then have to write a letter to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, that a declaration that no inability exists, right? So he would immediately say, no, there's no problem with me. The only way to override that, so it's like first, J.D. Vance and half the cabinet would say, this motherfucker is incapacitated. Donald would have to say, no, I'm not. And then he would step right back into his chair in front of behind the Resolute desk, unless, again, J.D. Vance, and this next part says, unless the vice president and that same, 50% of the cabinet or majority of the cabinet transmit within 4 days to that same, to the Senate and the House, their written declaration, the president is unable to discharge his duties of his office. After that happens, Congress has to assemble within 48 hours. If Congress within 21 days after getting that letter from J.D. Vance saying, no, he can't be in office, they have to then have a 2/3 vote. Guys, I'm gonna stop sharing now, because if your eyes glazed over, that's fucking okay. Because honest to fucking God, I'm swearing, it would be easier to impeach him in the House and remove him in the Senate than it would be to go through a 25th Amendment involuntary removal. So everyone who wants the 25th Amendment to be used, hell yes, this man has been incapacitated for years. But I would tell you that legal path is a complicated and untested one. The better road would be impeach in the House, convict in the Senate, and remove, but they ain't got the votes for any of that, which is to say, today is going to be super interesting, and which also is to say, where's the fucking press? They hounded Hillary when she was running for office against Donald Trump in 2016, when she got like the flu and fainted on her way to her car, or collapsed a little bit on her way to her car after a 9/11 memorial. Everyone was like, Hillary's fucking dying. Do you remember that? I also remember when Joe Biden had one of those moments where he also was slack-jawed and staring out into space in the middle of a debate in July of 2024, which led to pressuring him, which was a good thing, to step aside so Harris could step up and run. But the press was relentless. They were on the job. Mainstream media has been silent on this issue. They're fucking afraid of him. They're afraid of not having access to him. I want to see at 2:00 today what happens. What happens? Now, my schedule today is entirely uncertain. I've got a ton of meetings. But if it is possible, I will give as much advance notice as I can, and I might live stream that 2 p.m. So-called announcement with you. So I will know by 1 p.m., if not before, if I can make that happen. I will let you know, because I think it's in a really important moment for us to watch with our own eyes to see how the press reports on that. Okay, guys, let's pivot. Tomorrow, as I said, is a huge day. I want to hear from the victims of Jeff Epstein. And let me tie it together with what's going on with Donald. Do you remember when Harvey Weinstein was at maybe one of his first trials or his first trial, and he walked around like a weak man with a walker, so he would be kind of pathetic? I don't know if you remember this, but I'm going to share this with you. It was January of 2020, and I wouldn't put anything past Donald Trump that he's trying to seem weak in this moment. Not that they're going to release the full Epstein files, but maybe they're afraid of the victims. Now, this is a stretch. I actually think something happened to him, but let's also just take a look at what Harvey Weinstein did, the victim, or so he wanted us to believe. Okay, let's pull, I got you. Let's pull that up. And here we go. He's arriving in court in New York. And all the stage management, he's the victim. He's waiting. Oh, there's his electronic bracelet. But, and it looks like some suede loafers. Are they Gucci? I don't know the brand. Okay, there he is with his walker. There he is walking into court. Over the grate, mind you. Okay. Good. So there are some people who might say it's more than a coincidence. Others who might just say, oh, isn't this convenient that he's turning himself into a victim? I don't think that he will be acting like a victim for long. I just got a text from George Conway, and it's a tweet apparently he put out, and he just said, "Today's my birthday, and I'm hoping real Donald Trump will send me one of his amazing handcrafted cards with a beautiful Sharpie drawn woman on it. Oh, George, never quit." I've been trying to get George on the show. I think he has more important things to do with his life than come see an old friend, but I'll get him. Okay, so that is what could be happening. Now, I also want to pivot a little more, because real concern now is Donald Trump is ganging up or laser focus on attacking Democratic cities, meaning where mayors are Democrats. And despite the fact that a number of Republican members of Congress have had their feet to the fire by the press in this instance, saying, but cities in your state are more have more murders than this state or more violent crime than this state. They've talked about this again and again, and these folks want to ignore it. They don't, Mike Johnson doesn't want to face it. But let's take a look at what J.B. Pritzker has to say, because this is the authoritarian move. This is what we need to be concerned about. I'm going to play J.B. right now.
To the country if that happens. Deploying in Washington where he has federal control is one thing. But if he sends military forces into a major American city in a state that didn't ask for it, beyond Los Angeles, what do Americans make of that?
Well, they should understand that he has other aims other than fighting crime. That's the first thing they should understand. The second is it's an attack on the American people by the President of the United States. Now, he may disagree with a state that didn't vote for him, but should he be sending troops in? No.
You said he has other aims. What are the other aims?
The other aims are that he'd like to stop the elections in 2026 or, frankly, take control of those elections. He'll just claim that there's some problem with an election, and then he's got troops on the ground that can take control if, in fact, he's allowed to do this.
Guys, he wants to do it. Who's going to stop him? Who? It's on us. We need to be ready for when we need to flood the streets. I firmly believe if we get 11 million people on the streets, like Erica Chenoweth says, I do think it will be chaos and someone will step up and tell him it's time. Now, I want to cheer you up a little bit because I got two things to cheer you up. First, Susan Collins has the fight of her life. Her challenger, Planter, drew a crowd that looked like it was the entire flippin' state of Iowa. I think she needs to be concerned, right? We just saw that Joni Ernst of the "we're all gonna die" fame isn't running for re-election. Now we see out of Iowa, Susan Collins in the fight of her life. Susan Collins, who is always so concerned, but has been playing a bullshit game with Lisa Murkowski where they take turns acting like they really have the public's interest in mind when their votes won't really count. Well, let's look at who's giving Susan a run for her money.
Now, Susan Collins' charade is wearing thin. This is the easiest applause lines in these speeches. No one cares that you pretend to be remorseful as you sell out to lobbyists.
Yes. That.
No one cares while you sell out to corporations, and no one cares while you sell out to a president who are all engineering the greatest redistribution of wealth from the working class to the ruling class in American history.
That's right. Tell it like it is. Class consciousness is what we need.
Symbolic opposition does not reopen hospitals. Weak condemnations do not bring back Roe v. Wade.
Oh my God, you guys. Did I say Susan Collins was from Iowa and not Maine? Jesus Christ. I am so sorry. Joni Ernst is Iowa. Susan Collins is Maine. Apologies. I blended these useless ladies.
Selling out the same working class voters who've delivered mandate for change after mandate for change is not forgivable. A performative politics that enables the destruction of our way of life is disqualifying for the role of United States Senator.
Right? My God.
Maine deserves better than Susan Collins.
Hell yes.
And Maine deserves an alternative who is not at risk of being mistaken as being beholden to the same status quo that she is.
Yes, Graham Planter is a Democrat.
I am running because it is time for change.
Wow. Gotta love that. And this is big. With Joni Ernst stepping down in Iowa, and if Graham Planter can beat Susan Collins in Maine, and if Sherrod Brown can take the empty seat in Ohio, we are in swinging distance, or maybe landing the Senate. Pretty flippin' close. Same with the House. This is why Donald Trump needs to interfere in the elections. This is why 2026 is vital. And we don't even have that much time. And the problem is, even if Donald Trump were either dead, resigned, or removed, I don't think J.D. Vance will shy away from this same authoritarian playbook. I don't have a lot of big answers for you right now about this, but I feel energized when I see a crowd like this in Maine, the whole damn state of Maine, not Iowa, showing up, because that'd be funny if people came all the way from Iowa to Maine over Labor Day weekend for a holiday. But at any rate, showing up. We can show up for this, guys. We still have it in us. Rest up, pay attention. We got this. And now, time for Crazy Town. Let us do it. So, maybe with Crazy Town, I should be doing this thing where I stand and sway just in case. I hope that you guys keep me on my toes when I make mistakes. And also, if I start staring off into the distance with a slack jaw and no expression, I hope that either Michael, who's paying attention, calls 911. I mean, no joke. I should stop. This is actually quite serious. Let me just stop and say this. Oof. My sister-in-law, who is my age, had not an ischemic stroke, but she had the worst kind of stroke. And she had a hemorrhagic stroke, bleeding in her brain in late 2023, and ultimately passed away in February of 2024. It has been a hard time for our family. We lost my father while she was in a coma. And then my sister-in-law passed in February, and then my mother passed, as you know, a year later. And I take health issues quite seriously, and I've spent way too much time in hospitals, in ICU, in units, in hospice, and so on. And strokes are serious, and you don't suddenly get healthy right away. And covering these things up means the next one can be worse. I don't want to get too personal on this with my family, but putting all my animus aside for who Donald Trump is as a person and as a politician, if he were my father or my grandfather, I'd be extremely concerned right now. And it seems to me that people are using him just like he uses everybody else, and are not paying attention to his health. They are using him for their own money, domination, and sick plans to hurt American people. But now, let me play a little Crazy Town music, because that was not so crazy. Crazy Town is Kristi Noem, who is not only lying through her teeth, but is extremely dangerous. She is up there as, I think, one of the most dangerous people in America. I want to play this for you.
We'll continue to go after the worst of the worst across the country, like President Trump has told us to do, focusing on those that are perpetuating murder and rape and trafficking of drugs and humans across our country, knowing.
And that's not what they're doing. They're going after people who work hard. They're going after children in school. They're going into hospitals where women are giving birth.
That every single citizen deserves to be safe.
Part of what distinguished the Los Angeles operations, however, is that National Guard troops were there, in essence, protecting or backing up those federal agents as they conducted operations. Is that what we should expect to see in Chicago?
You know, that always is a prerogative of President Trump and his decision. I won't speak to the specifics of the operations that are planned in other cities, but I do know that LA wouldn't be standing today if President Trump hadn't taken action. Then that city would have burned down if left to the devices of the mayor and the governor of that state. And so the citizens who live there, the small business owners in downtown LA, they're thankful that President Trump came in with federal law enforcement officers and helped support keeping.
Los Angeles would not have burned down. Come on. People, they are lying all the time. The goal is what Pritzker said. She is crazy like a fox. This is someone, the former governor of South Dakota, who is not welcome on many Indian reservations in that state that coexist in South Dakota. This is the woman who proudly discussed the cruel shooting of a dog who she just didn't think was good enough, dragging and throwing this dog into a pit. She would treat you and I and anyone else the same. And with that, my friends, I'm hoping to see you today at 2 p.m. for that presser. I'll let you know. And until then, be well. And thank you to my amazing mods. Deb, you are back. Jason, you're always with us. I mean, you take breaks, don't worry. And AJ, thanks so much for joining us also.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub Show, where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show.